I would like to voice my concern about the jungle, particularly the area of the jungle that's currently referred to as jungle number 1, which is the area behind the warehouse carpet and Agway, so close into the west end.
What color code is that one? That's
Actually,
a no camping?
it's, well, it may very well be. Part of it is city property. This is on the,
I understand what you're talking about, but I thought that was all zoned out now. Is that in one of the
no,
zones?
what's confusing about it is the area that's west of an arm of water that goes towards Wegmans has been fenced and is currently unoccupied, and that is part of the red zone.
Okay,
What I didn't realize until recently is on the east side of that strip of water, there's still some city property. And then east of that is railroad property. And we can't make railroad property a red zone because it's not our property. However, that strip of city property and railroad property is, there's a lot of encampments there. And that's where some of the most recent stabbing occurred. A person and his dog were slashed. There's numerous caches of bicycles there. There's burned out campsites, probably half a dozen. I was there on Sunday. It's got a whole different vibe than the rest of the jungle, in my opinion. It's a scary place. And the fact that some of my colleagues on council are reluctant to enforce these proposed changes of where you can and cannot camp, even though we've made it clear that nobody's going to be rousted, nobody's going to be arrested for camping in the wrong spot. If we don't have some kind of not criminalizing homelessness, but criminalizing crime and dealing with crime.
so it's a double negative, so it means that's a good thing?
I don't know what I'm saying.
Criminalizing crime.
I'm saying there's a lot of crime in that
Yeah.
area. People are getting hurt.
Yeah.
There's death threats as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I've heard. There's drug activity that's ramping up and becoming much more dangerous. And the surrounding community, the people who live there, the people who try to do business there are under siege. Businesses are leaving the West End because of this. The Cancer Resource Center just abandoned the house that they own free and clear because people are afraid to go there. So I guess what I'm saying is, and this is not on IPD as much as it is on myself and other members of Common Council, we have to address this. And if we continue to ignore it, we're cowards.
Well, I mean, there needs to be a definition as to, there's a huge difference between being homeless and being a criminal. So if I am camping in my backyard and I decide I'm gonna have a meth lab, you can bet your royal butt that you and your club are gonna be over having the cops over to my house and having me arrested. So for the city to take a position that on their property, it's the wild, wild west, is not a sane policy.
That's not the policy that the city's considering, to be fair.
Well, you just told me you got the wild, wild west going on, and you haven't identified what kind of a zone that is or isn't, and you got a large amount of crime going on in that particular space.
Right,
Did I
that's-
misunderstand what you said?
What I'm talking about is concern about the crime that's taking place there.
Okay,
And it's not only affecting the residents of the West End and the businesses of the West End, it's affecting the law-abiding homeless people who are living there. So,
I get it.
and so the proposed policy that the city is considering is a land use policy where certain areas will be zoned as red, which means no camping. Large area in the southwest would be coded green, which camping would be allowed. And the rest would have this amber color, which means we're not gonna enforce no camping unless there's bad things happening there.
Yeah, it's a traffic light. You go on green, you stop on red, you caution on yellow.
Okay,
Well, how will people know? Like, what the color code situation, like, how would the folks that are there know?
good question.
Okay.
So the proposed thinking, and I agree with this, is that there has to be cooperation with the outreach workers who work in the jungle. And that's the first, well, that's how people know where they can and can't camp, and that's already taken place in that one area between Brindley and Cecil B. Malone.
Do you have signs up saying no camping?
Yes, but not everywhere, not in the southwest and not in the amber zones.
So southwest is what, back of Walmart?
Yes, sir, yeah. And Lowe's. Where am I?
Colors, and how are you gonna determine what's red and green?
Okay, so cooperation with outreach workers is crucial.
Mhm.
And that's how we avoid asking the police or DPW to come in and tell people they have to move. Well, but what is being proposed is urging people to move and helping them move as opposed to forcing them to leave and or arresting. That's not what the proposed.
So is there an incentive to go towards the green zones or towards southwest? For these people that are in the city railroad property arm you're talking about? Is there an incentive for those who are, let's say, legitimately, law abiding?
That's a good question,
I mean,
and yes, there is.
Okay,
If we make it happen, it's been talked about for months, and that is to establish an area that has running water with hot showers and real toilets. Currently, the idea is to have those in movable trailers, because the thinking is that they might be vandalized if they were just stationary. So that's the attraction. Place to get clean and use the bathroom. And there's more space in the southwest. the area behind Agway is pretty compact. And, but again, the people who are living homeless and aren't trying to cause any problems and are just looking for more safety, that this is a good option. People who are preying on West End businesses and people and selling drugs, maybe that's not a good option. Maybe they want to stay where they are.
Can I ask what our homeless population is, or what the numbers?
I don't know.
Okay, Matt, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just, you know, it was my first meeting, I like the response and what George said, it was going to do an hour till I.
Well, I mean, I think we can open it up. I mean, further on in the agenda, we are talking about the town hall, which I find kind of links in with this situation that we have with the jungle. You know, it's reimagining how Ithaca is gonna live with new public safety kind of guidepost, if you will. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, there's a couple things.
But I don't see it as a defending kind of thing.
No, I just wanted to, I think there's more discussion needed and.
Okay.
I guess, you know, first of all, George, your comments about, you know, the town hall and what Reverend Wright said. It's alarming, it's upsetting, and I think that I'll clarify with him, I'll get in touch with him, but there's a distinction between. The concern about being treated differently based on what the poll is, or is being treated like currently, or has been. Those are three, and either way, it's a concern. But I think that I'll call him and make sure I understand. I think I need to distinguish between those three. The concern for possibly currently being as. As far as the lack of diversity or hiring, you spoke about, you know, this is something I was gonna talk about, but IPD cannot make people want to be cops. This is a societal problem, and currently it's an Ithaca cop problem. So we need help from the community to make our young people of the target age or even younger in school think that policing is a desirable and admirable profession again. And that is incumbent on everybody here, this board, with the common council, and every resident and everyone that lives here. So really what I'm asking for is help. You know, I can't make someone want to be a cop. I can tell them about what, you know, the job is like. I can try and help them through the process and give advice, but, you know, we really need help. If people want to see, you know, us add a diversity, we need help recruiting in diverse areas, which, you know, we're trying to do, but we're also trying to do our full-time job, work overtime to cover shifts and do this. So any help that anyone wants to give, I'd love it. If you want recruiting posters or flyers, like that, let me know, I'll personally deliver them to you. I was gonna talk about this later, but you know, we're currently recruiting right now for our civil service exam. The deadline is August 4th. So I would love to have, like, when I could pass 300 or 400 people on the list instead of 80 or 50 or 30. August 4th. So if anyone has a spot, put them up, let me know. And then lastly, the jungle is a huge problem. You're right. And I would just, when I leave here between the next meeting, I'm gonna send out a media release about, you know, another serious crime that's it has been being investigated. Does everyone here get the media releases?
Does everyone here get what?
The media releases from IPD, does that?
No, we don't.
I do.
Okay. I don't know if there's an interest there.
Yes.
Seeing our media releases, that's, you know,
There's an
that's something you
interest.
could help.
Would that mean having Scott add the board members to that
Yeah.
email group for you
Yeah, I
guys,
don't
so
know
that
if
when you send it,
Yep.
it goes to them, because that's what he did to get me on there.
Yeah.
He put my name on there,
So
so
that'll
if
be-
you're okaying that.
Yeah, it's public, what we put out goes to the media, it's public
Yeah.
information, but, you know, if you're an oversight board, I think it might be helpful to get those directly, so you don't have to wait till they get published or something, it's not published.
That's a good idea.
Well, it's a great idea because sometimes your neighbor, you know, says, what the hell, Shirley?
Right.
You're on the board.
Yeah.
And I go, I don't know.
Yeah, at that point, when we hit send, it's public information, so I
Yeah.
don't see any issue why you guys all shouldn't have it. But the jungle is a problem, and I would just say that, you know, there's a difference between people that live down there and are law abiding or maybe committing like petty crimes, you know, theft or trespassing or, you know, vandalism, all stuff that's not okay, but certainly not like top of our list. And I would say both of those groups are being victimized by people that are committing serious crime, stabbing, you know, violent crimes. And, you know, it's intermixed. And I think people often conflate addiction and like actual narcotics trafficking, human trafficking, like a lot of those things go hand in hand too, so. Not that this board really governs that, but the jungle is a serious problem. People down there are being, the people that I think the city's worried about being mistreated by the cops are being victimized by the criminals, is my opinion.
I would not disagree with you.
Yeah, so.
George, I had a question. I have a comment too, but the question is, when that first watering was on the west side of that drainage creek, was police presence required to do that, or did,
No,
so that came off peacefully?
well, seasons are a factor. So in the wintertime, there's the code blue money that comes from the state. And the vast majority of homeless people go to motel in cold weather. So that area was empty last winter. And with encouragement from the county, we're threatening to fine the city because of the environmental hazards that were there. We cleaned it up. DPW cleaned it up over several days and tens of thousands of dollars worth of man hours. And still not spotlessly clean, but did a good job of cleaning it up. And then the county agreed to pay the tipping fee for all that junk as their way of contributing. But they also said that if it got all trashed again, they were gonna pay a second time. And so the city, DPW, put up that fencing. And there's been a 10 or 2 in there once in a while, but basically nobody's living there. And that's how it came to be. It wasn't cleared by anyone of people other than cold weather.
Thanks. My comments were that in addition to whatever crime had gone on down there, there were 2 major fires behind Carpet Warehouse. One was reported as being potentially life threatening. And having been in that area with police officers, that's a very, very inaccessible area for fire or police to get in if there is a problem. You have to, I think the fastest way is to walk across the railroad tracks at Agway and try to get in that way. It's a place where you can kind of hide out and not have official interactions because it's inaccessible.
Why they picked it.
I agree. There is, I had never really explored it until last Sunday. And I walked all through it. And there weren't a lot of people there during the day. There was one person I talked to, but in between Agway and Carpet Warehouse, there is one little like driveway type crossing of the tracks from where McGuire's has one of their lots of used cars and the other side. So I think that's probably how an emergency vehicle could get kind of in the middle of that area, but you're right, it's just trails and it's pretty inaccessible. So if it ever did become, if ever the city said, okay, you can't camp here anymore. We've done that in the past, many years ago, when Carolyn Peterson was mayor. It would have to go along with the railroad saying that nobody can camp on their property either.
Wasn't the railroad originally that asked the city to have the residents removed from their property and not allow them access by going through their property? I think it was initiated by the railroad company, was it 20 years ago?
That could be, I know the railroads doesn't like people camping on their property, but I don't know if they made a formal request.
Well, it's changed.
Reached out to the city and IPD recently, and essentially, I think they, you know, they're a victim of this stuff as much as anyone else, losing, you know, a lot of tools and equipment is very expensive and often gets stolen, damaged, vandalized, or a train, you know, they had concerns about people tracking the tracks and trains coming through, which was really scary for them, and I think I don't want to speak for them, but I think that they would go along with the city, but they don't also want to be this corporation coming in here and causing a problem without support of the city government. They would go along with it, but they don't want to be like the spearhead. Company that leases it now, it used to be Norfolk Southern.
That's what I'm.
It's not anymore.
It's not
so-
No, I know.
It was CSX even before that, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a different company, I can't. think of the
Okay.
name, but They have been in touch with the city,
Okay,